India is the biggest democracy in the world. In the ongoing election this year, 970 million people are registered to vote. That is 3 times the entire population of USA. This year the voting will happen over 7 phases and will last 44 days. In this time, the Election Commission will send electronic voting machines or EVMs to remotest places of the country. Planes, trains, cars, horses, elephants, whatever mode of transportation is needed is going to be used in order to ensure that people can vote throughout the country. So I guess one can argue that if there is a country that represents democracy, it is India. However, according to some reports, the democracy in India is on a decline and dying. Of course, the ruling party BJP and its supporters straightaway denied this as Western propaganda in order to tarnish the Indian reputation. Meanwhile, Indian National Congress, the party in opposition, fully endorsed this report, stating that yes, the country's democracy standards are declining. In today's video, we dive into all of this, true or not, but let's first see what is a democracy. Now, according to most of the people, if you can vote and choose a leader, it is a democracy. And alternatively, it's not. Simple as that, black and white. In reality, the answer is not as simple. A democracy is more of a spectrum than black and white solution. Even within a country, some institutions can be more democratic than the others. For the sake of this video, let's divide this spectrum into 4 further segments, just so that we can understand what all kinds of democracies exist out there. The first one is called a closed autocracy. Example of this would be China. Theoretically, there is democratic process within the Communist People's Party to elect a president. In a closed autocracy, the citizens do not have the right to choose either their main leader or even participate in voting through multi-party system. It's just a closed system. And the second one is an electoral autocracy. This is what India has become according to some reports. An electoral autocracy is a hybrid regime in which democratic institutions and multiple parties are present. But there are numerous violations of people's liberal democratic rights. In these regimes, regular elections are held, but they're accused of falling short of reaching democratic standards that we are used to in the rest of the world. Third one being an electoral democracy. Example of this is USA, where elections happen regularly, but it has issues like gerrymandering, lobbying, and barriers to voting for certain groups that still exist, making it a country where citizens get to freely choose their candidates. However, these elections are not the fairest, not held to the highest standards of democracy. The fourth kind of democracy is considered a liberal democracy. Example of this would be Norway. The citizens get to choose their candidate from a list of competitors. However, the chosen government goes the extra mile to ensure equality under the law. Some of the examples would be providing medical treatment for all, equal rights for LGBTQ community. They are all protected under such democracies, allowing everyone to cast their votes and choose freely what they want. Now, a very important thing to keep in mind about a democratic spectrum is a country is never on the same spot. They can move on the spectrum based on the policies being pushed by the governments. For example, when Soviet Union fell, Russia's democracy index score improved. However, with Putin coming to power, over the years, the country's score has started to deteriorate. You see, it's never constant. It changes over the time. And meanwhile, we're talking about Putin. There's a link in the description. If you want to watch a video about Putin's power in Russia, please check out the links. And if you're liking this video so far, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. Let's continue with this video. Now, as part of the report in 2018, India went from an electoral democracy to electoral autocracy. This downgrade didn't happen overnight. It has been a decade in the making. Last time this happened, it was under the rule of Indira Gandhi's government, a leader who's from India's other political party, Indian National Congress. So, what are some of the reasons that India is becoming undemocratic? There are mainly 5 things that have driven the country towards an electoral autocracy. And funny enough, they are all pretty much the same things what Indira Gandhi did many years back. Let's start with the first one, that is the rise of populism. When Modi hit the national stage ahead of 2014 elections, he harnessed the social media to develop a leader-centric political stance. Modi's populist appeal was based on offering economic opportunities and jobs to the big population of India. At the same time, Modi also blamed other previous governments that have come into power for running welfare schemes instead of giving people jobs. Once Modi was in power, it became very clear to him that generating employment isn't the easiest thing to do. And instead, over the years, BJP has increasingly promoted job creation as an individual's responsibility and tagged it as entrepreneurship. At the same time, BJP has turned towards offering welfare schemes, the same thing that they criticized the previous governments of. They are just slapping Modi's face on everything and offering the same welfare schemes that the previous governments did. However, his rise to the power has been so politician-centric that people didn't care if he creates jobs or not once he was in power. People still continue to love him, which is the trademark of a populist government. Number 2, the rise of Hindutva. Hindutva is Hindu nationalism ideology that believes in transforming India, a constitutionally secular state, into a ethno-religious nation known as the Hindu Rashtra or Hindu nation. Ever since Modi has come to power, the ethnic tensions in the country have increased. His government has passed laws that reflect Hindu-centric values, such as the Citizenship Amendment Act in 2019, which fast-tracks the citizenship for non-Muslim immigrants from certain countries. It's not just the laws and bills that are being passed by his government. His government and its member parliaments have literally gone out there and said certain things which are very much against the secular nation of the country. So under Modi's government, a lot of the minorities don't feel safe within the country, which, again, of course, is not democratic. Number 3, the centralization of power. Modi has centralized power during his tenure. This centralization has led to consolidation of decision-making authority, often at the expense of regional and local government structures, which is undemocratic in a federal union, which India is. Other examples would be the use of central investigative agencies to harass and intimidate voices of dissent. For example, in January, BBC released a documentary highlighting the failures of Modi government. Now, in a functioning democracy, it would be up to the people to see this film and decide for themselves if there is any substance to this issue being discussed. Instead, the government banned the documentary, followed by raids at Mumbai and Delhi offices of BBC to intimidate these media personnel. It's the over-centralization and then using those powers that they've gained in order to curb any voice of dissent. And number 4, the media censorship that has happened during his tenure. There's been a shift in the news media landscape. In the last 10 years of Modi being in power, the mainstream media has never questioned the Prime Minister or his government. This is mainly because most of the news channels are owned by businesses close to Modi government. Similar to what we noticed in our Putin's rise to power video, where all his oligarch friends had taken over the mainstream media. Now in India, there are very few mainstream news organizations that are questioning the government still. And unfortunately, most of this media exists online. And the sad part is they do not have the same reach as the traditional media houses do. The Modi government is also trying to pass a bill in order to censor and bury these online media houses in paperwork and litigation. The idea is to curb any voice of dissent, if possible, at all costs. Finally, the 5th one, and perhaps the most alarming issue, that is the authoritarian tendencies of Mr. Modi. Modi over the last 10 years has eroded institutional checks and balances on his own power, and at the same time has tried to stifle any voice of dissent, which are all signs of authoritarianism. For example, Rahul Gandhi, a prominent leader of the opposition Congress National Party, lost a seat in the parliament after being convicted of defamation. Although the conviction was later suspended by the Supreme Court, allowing him to return to the parliament, but the actions of the Modi government were definitely authoritarian in its nature. There's another incident that involved the freezing of the Congress party's bank accounts following the allegations of financial misdemeanors. And this was conveniently done right before the ongoing elections, so that the other party, that is not BJP, cannot really promote themselves or carry out the rallies or use the funds they need in order to win an election. All things that are authoritarian in its nature. There is a whole list of these things. And funny enough, Indira Gandhi had a similar track record as well. Both the leaders used the populist rhetoric to appeal to their respective electorates. Indira Gandhi was more left-leaning, Modi is more right-leaning, and they've both used a populist agenda in order to get into power. So, what does the future hold for India? In the ongoing election, Modi is likely to win a 3rd term in power, as there is no strong opposition and his approval ratings are still very high. BJP, since the day they came into power in 2014, has radically altered the norms, the values, and the behaviors of the people and somehow legitimized everything they do, even the undemocratic stuff, in the eyes of the people. Many times, these undemocratic government actions are taken in defense of the nation and the Indian identity. Like, when someone says the country is getting undemocratic, like this video, the first thing the population of the country does is not think, maybe it is getting undemocratic. But the first thing the country is right now geared to do is call this video perhaps anti-national, or the report that came out in 2018 an anti-national act. Modi and his appeal has somehow changed what constitutes acceptable political behavior, political culture among the citizens. The country has become more coarse and more violent and less democratic. Unless the opposition, that is a shit show right now of its own, gets its act together, the democratic backsliding seems to be in India's future for now. That's it for this video. I will see you in 2 weeks' time from now. Peace. Bye.